Rusty's yelp sliced through the cold night air behind Miller's tap like a knife. 1 second the brown mutt was sniffing a grease stain by the dumpster, tail wagging, and the next he was tumbling sideways from a violent kick, claws scraping uselessly on the cracked asphalt. "Hey!" Luke shouted, the pizza bag slipping from his shoulder. The guy who'd kicked Rusty barely glanced at him. Khaki pants, pressed button-up half untucked, ball cap from some golf course and just drunk enough to swagger. He laughed over his shoulder at his friends smoking by a lifted black truck, its chrome shining under the yellow security light. "Shoulda kept your mutt at home, DoorDash," he sneered. "Almost scuffed my Jordans." Rusty staggered up, ribs heaving, tail tucked so tight it brushed his belly. His big, soulful eyes locked on Luke's, confused, apologetic, like he thought getting kicked was his fault. Luke's chest burned. He'd pulled this dog out of a shelter cage a year ago. Nobody had kicked him since. Luke knelt, fingers trembling as he checked Rusty's side. "You okay, buddy? You okay?" Rusty flinched when he touched a fresh red mark blooming through the fur. The drunk stepped closer, beer bottle dangling from his fingers. "You deaf or just stupid? I said keep your trash dog away from my truck. That thing scratches the paint, you're buying me a new wrap." Luke swallowed hard. He wanted to swing. He also wanted to keep his delivery job and not end up in a holding cell. Rent was already a week late. His mom's prescriptions were sitting unpaid at the pharmacy. "He wasn't anywhere near your truck, man. You just walked up and kicked him." The guy's buddies hooted. One of them lifted a phone, already recording. "Yo, Tyler, you gonna let this delivery boy talk to you like that?" The man, Tyler, smiled in a cold way that didn't reach his eyes. "You calling me a liar?" Behind them, the steel back door to the bar was cracked open, throwing a slice of warm kitchen light into the parking lot. Inside, over the clatter of dishes and the sizzle of burgers, the cook had been stacking plates when the yelp echoed down the line. Mason froze, spatula hovering over the grill. That sound dragged up memories he tried hard to bury. A dark hallway, a barking dog, a flashbang going wrong, a body on the floor that wasn't supposed to be there. For a second he wasn't in a small-town bar kitchen. He was back on a SWAT raid that still woke him up at night. Another bark, high, panicked, cut off halfway. Mason dropped the spatula, ignoring the ticket hanging on the order wheel. "Cover the line," he called to the dishwasher who wasn't remotely trained for that. He pushed through the swinging door and slipped out into the cold. Luke stood between Rusty and Tyler now, shoulders hunched, pizza bag at his feet. Rusty pressed against Luke's leg, growling low, trying to be brave while his whole body shook. "Apologize," Tyler said, stepping in until they were almost chest to chest. Alcohol steamed off his breath. "For raising your voice. For bringing that fleabag near my truck. And for looking at me like that." Luke's jaw worked. "I'm not apologizing for you kicking my dog." One of Tyler's friends whistled. "Bad move, dude." Tyler's smile vanished. His hand shifted the bottle, not like a drink anymore but like a weapon. Rusty sensed it. His growl deepened, ears flattening. Luke saw the change in the man's eyes, the way fun had turned to something mean and ugly. "You gonna control that mutt?" Tyler said softly. "Or am I?" He raised his boot again, aiming straight for Rusty's ribs. Before Luke could move, Rusty's growl broke into a desperate whine. And a voice from the doorway cut through the noise, low and edged with steel. "Hey, step away from the dog." Tyler turned, annoyed, like a king interrupted. His buddies fell quiet when they saw the man in the doorway. Mason filled the frame in a faded black apron and a gray t-shirt that stretched across shoulders built by more than lifting fry baskets. A smear of ketchup striped his forearm. The kitchen light behind him threw his face into partial shadow, but his eyes were crystal clear and steady. "This is between me and DoorDash here," Tyler said. "Go flip some burgers, man." Mason didn't move. "You're done," he said calmly. "Go inside. Pay your tab. Leave the dog alone." Luke glanced back, surprised. He'd seen the cook a few times when picking up late-night orders. Quiet, efficient, the kind of guy who looked like he used to be something else before ending up in a small-town bar. But he hadn't expected him to step into this. Tyler snorted. "You the boss now?" "No," Mason said. "Just the guy who's not gonna watch you kick a defenseless animal again." The word "again" made Luke's stomach clench. He'd seen the way Rusty cowered at raised voices when he first brought him home, the way he flinched when someone moved too fast. Somewhere, sometime, somebody had done this to him before. He'd promised the dog that life was over. Tyler took a half step closer to Mason, sizing him up. "You talking big for a cook. You know who my dad is." "I know what I just saw," Mason replied. His voice stayed calm, but his stance shifted. Weight balanced, hands relaxed at his sides, attention taking in the distance to the truck, the angles of the alley, Tyler's friends, the phone still recording. SWAT training never really turned off. From inside, the bar's TV blared a college game. Laughter and clinking glasses were muffled by the brick walls, like the rest of the world didn't know something ugly was unfolding just outside. Luke straightened slowly, heart pounding. Look, I don't want trouble. I just want to deliver this order and go home. Tyler swung the bottle lazily, dangerously close to Luke's shoulder. You already got trouble, man? You think I'm gonna let you disrespect me in front of my friends? Rusty pressed closer, nose bumping Luke's hand, grounding him. That dog had curled up on his chest after double shifts, warm and trusting. Rusty had ridden shotgun on long, lonely drives while Luke worried about bills and his mom's oxygen tank and the way life kept getting tighter. Rusty was the one thing in his world that didn't ask for anything except love. Nobody was going to hurt him. Not while Luke was breathing. Mason knew he should stay in character, the quiet cook who minded his business. His SWAT unit was already watching this bar for drugs moving through the back door. He'd taken the kitchen shift as cover, blending in while they built a case. Getting into it with some drunk rich kid wasn't part of the plan. But then he looked at Rusty's shaking body, at the fading shelter tattoo inside one ear, at the bruise already darkening under the fur. His chest tightened. A different dog's scream echoed from years ago. A different man's face, twisted in grief, looking at Mason like he'd personally loaded every bullet. Mason stepped off the stoop and onto the asphalt. Here's what's gonna happen, he said evenly. You and your friends are gonna walk back inside. You're gonna keep your hands and feet to yourselves. Or I'm calling this in. Tyler's eyes narrowed. Calling what in? That I tapped some mutt. One of his buddies murmured, Dude, let's just go. This is turning weird. Tyler shrugged him off. Nah. I'm teaching these clowns some respect. He took another step. Rusty barked, a sharp, warning sound. Tyler's head snapped down. I'm sick of that noise. His leg twitched like he was about to kick again. Mason's gaze dropped to the man's waistband. Under the untucked shirt, the outline of something rigid and familiar pressed against the fabric. Not a phone. Not a wallet. He's carrying, Mason realized. In a bar parking lot. Drunk. Mason's heartbeat slowed, his world narrowing to angles and distances. The parking lot suddenly wasn't just a parking lot, it was a tactical problem. Drunk man with a possible concealed weapon. 3 friends, 1 filming. Civilian with a dog as collateral in the middle. If he moved wrong, someone could die. If he did nothing, someone could still die. Tyler saw his eyes drop and smirked, misreading it as fear. Yeah, he said softly. You gonna do something about it, cook? Mason inhaled once, made his decision. And the bar's back door banged open behind him. What the hell is going on out here? The owner barked. Everyone froze. If you want to know how this story ends, subscribe to the channel and don't miss the next chapters. The bar owner, a heavy-set man named Gary with a grease-stained ball cap, stepped out, wiping his hands on a towel. He took in the scene in one quick sweep. Delivery driver, trembling dog, his best-paying customer with a bottle in hand, and his cook standing in the middle of it all like a referee. Tyler, you causing problems again? Gary asked, voice wary. Tyler instantly softened his posture, like flipping a switch. Just trying to protect my truck, Mr. G. This dog went after me. Rusty shrank back as if understanding the false accusation. His ribs rose and fell too fast. Luke stammered, No, sir, he didn't. Luke, right? Gary cut in, squinting. DoorDash guy. You're blocking my loading bay. Luke glanced at his beat-up Corolla parked near the dumpster. It was barely close to the bay, but arguing with bar owners never helped a driver get bigger tips. Sorry, I'll move it right after I drop this order. Tyler smirked. His friends relaxed, sensing the shift. They were used to this, Tyler bending the room around him with money and last names. Gary looked between them, weighing it. His eyes flicked to Mason. You good here? Mason understood the code. Don't scare off the guy who buys the top-shelf whiskey. Keep it quiet. Don't make this a thing. We're fine, Mason said, though his jaw clenched. Just clearing up a misunderstanding. Gary grunted, satisfied. All right. Tyler, your wings are on the bar. Luke, that orders table 12. He jerked his chin toward the rear door, then vanished back inside, sealing the warmth away. Tyler took a last lingering look at Rusty. Keep that mutt out of my way, he said, pointing the bottle like a warning. Or next time I won't miss his head. He sauntered toward the door, friends falling in behind him, laughing again like nothing had happened. The moment they were gone, Luke sagged. He dropped to one knee beside Rusty. Show me, buddy. He gently parted the fur. A dark bruise was already blooming, the skin hot under his fingers. Rage threaded through his veins. You should get him checked out, Mason said quietly, stepping closer. Ribs can crack easier than you think. Luke looked up. Vet costs more than my car's worth. Mason studied him. The tired eyes, the fraying cuffs on his hoodie, the delivery bag patched with duct tape. You got someone at home who needs you? He asked. Luke hesitated. My mom. COPD. I do nights so I can be there during the day. Rusty helps her not feel so alone when I'm gone. He swallowed. I found him at the shelter. They said he'd been returned twice. Too nervous. He stroked the dog's head. Rusty licked his wrist. Mason's chest tightened. SWAT officers weren't supposed to get personally involved. But he'd learned long ago you couldn't shut humanity off like a faucet and still look in the mirror. He crouched, meeting Rusty's eyes. The dog paused, sniffing his hand, then leaned forward, resting his chin on Mason's fingers. Trusting. Just like the shepherd on that raid had trusted him to keep the chaos away. I'm Mason, he said, more to Luke than the dog. If he starts breathing weird or won't eat, bring him back here. I know a vet who'll work with you on payments. Luke blinked. Why do you care? Because I've watched a dog die on a concrete floor while I was supposed to be the hero, Mason thought. Because I promised myself never again. He just shrugged. I don't like bullies. A roar of laughter spilled out as the back door opened again. Tyler and his crew were heading to the parking lot now, buzzed and restless. Mason's eyes tracked them automatically. Listen, Mason said quickly, lowering his voice. When you're done with this drop, don't hang around. Some guys don't like being told no, especially when they've been drinking. I'm not looking for a fight, Luke said. That doesn't mean it won't find you. Luke nodded, throat tight. He slung the delivery bag over his shoulder and headed inside with Rusty trotting close, still limping slightly. For a moment it almost felt normal, a guy doing his job, bringing food. But Rusty kept looking back at the parking lot, ears pricked, as if he knew danger hadn't finished with them yet. 2 hours later the bar was thinning out. The game had ended. Gary had cashed out the last of the regulars. Luke had circled back to pick up late-night orders from another restaurant down the street. Rusty slept curled on the passenger seat like a cinnamon roll, seat belt looped loosely through his harness. On his app, a new order pinged. Pickup, Miller's Tap. Delivery, house on the edge of town. Luke's stomach dropped. Of course it had to be here again. He could cancel the order, take the hit on his rating. Or he could suck it up, keep the money flowing for one more night. He looked at Rusty. One more stop, okay? We'll be in and out. He turned into the same parking lot, the asphalt now slick with a thin mist. The lifted black truck was still there. As Luke parked, Rusty's head snapped up, a low growl starting deep in his chest. Luke checked the rearview mirror, and froze. In the shadows behind his car, Tyler and 2 of his buddies were already walking toward him, hands in their pockets, smiles all wrong. Luke's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. For a heartbeat, he considered throwing the car into reverse and bolting. But the way Tyler's truck was parked, angled across 2 spaces, blocked the quickest path out. Luke's old Corolla wasn't winning that game of chicken. Rusty's growl grew louder, a vibration against Luke's jeans. Easy boy, Luke whispered, though his own pulse was racing. Just stay here. He cracked the door and stepped out, clutching the insulated delivery bag like a flimsy shield. The parking lot was quieter now. The bar's neon sign cast a sickly red glow across the puddles. Somewhere in the distance, a semi rumbled past on the highway. Tyler clapped slowly as he approached. Look who came back, he drawled. Dog boy. Luke forced a tight smile. Just here to pick up an order. Then I'm gone. One of the friends snickered. You hear that, Ty? He thinks he gets to make plans. The second friend, the one with the phone earlier, had it out again, camera already rolling. Round 2, he said under his breath. Luke glanced toward the back door of the bar. It was closed. No slice of kitchen light this time. No tall cook standing there like a line he could hide behind. It doesn't have to be anything, Luke said carefully. You have your night, I'll have mine. We all go home. Tyler stepped closer until Luke could smell the mix of alcohol and expensive cologne. See, that's the thing, he said. My night's kinda ruined. That little scene earlier? You made me look bad. In front of my friends. In front of Gary. Even that wannabe tough guy cook. I didn't. Tyler's hand shot out, grabbing the front of Luke's hoodie and yanking him forward. Luke stumbled, nearly dropping the bag. Rusty barked from inside the car, high and frantic. Shut that dog up, one of the friends yelled. Luke lifted his hands, palms up. Okay. I'm sorry if you felt disrespected. That wasn't my intent. Tyler's lip curled. Apology not accepted. He let go suddenly, causing Luke to stumble backward into his own car. The delivery bag slipped out of his grasp, smacking the pavement. Luke grabbed for it, but a boot came down on the edge, pinning it. Careful, Tyler said. Wouldn't want you to lose your job over messed up food. Or a messed up rating. Heard those apps can be real unforgiving. The friend with the phone moved closer, framing Luke in the shot. Say hi to corporate, he said. This dude just threatened me in the parking lot. Right, Tyler? Oh yeah, Tyler said smoothly. Real aggressive. Dog too. Might have to let them know how unsafe we felt. Luke's mouth went dry. A couple more complaints and he'd be deactivated. No appeals, no second chances. There were 1,000 drivers lined up behind him. Rusty barked again, frantic now, clawing at the window. Luke glanced back to shush him, and Tyler seized the moment. He snatched Luke's phone from his back pocket with practiced ease. Before Luke could react, Tyler hurled it across the lot. It bounced once, skidded under the rear tire of a parked pickup, and disappeared into a puddle with a sad little splash. Whoops, Tyler said. Clumsy. That was all I had, Luke blurted, panic spiking. I can't afford a new. Not my problem, DoorDash. Behind them, a door creaked. For a second, Luke's heart leapt. Mason? But it was just Gary poking his head out, taking in the scene with a frown. Tyler lifted a hand and flashed him a thumbs up, easy and charming. Gary shrugged, went back inside. Door shut. The lot felt colder. Rusty's barking turned into a desperate, continuous sound. He drooled at the window, eyes wild. Dog really doesn't like me, Tyler muttered. Maybe I should handle that. He bent suddenly, grabbed an empty beer bottle from the ground, and slammed it against the bumper of his own truck. Glass exploded, raining across the asphalt. Tyler gripped the jagged neck of the bottle, testing the edge with his thumb. He turned toward Luke's car, raising it. Let's see how tough your rescue mutt is when he's bleeding, he said quietly. The world narrowed to that shard of glass, glinting under the neon. Luke lunged without thinking. No. Tyler twisted, swinging the bottle toward Luke's face instead. He never connected. A hand, hard, precise, caught Tyler's wrist mid-swing. The glass trembled inches from Luke's cheek. Bars closed, gentlemen, Mason said, voice icy. Heat appeared out of nowhere, apron gone, bar logo hoodie zipped up, eyes burning. For the first time that night, Tyler looked genuinely startled. For a moment, nobody moved. The broken bottle trembled in Tyler's hand, every muscle in his arm straining against the grip clamped around his wrist. Mason held him there without apparent effort. Up close, without the apron, he looked different, more like a cop than a cook. His stance was squared, feet shoulder-width apart. His gaze flicked once over Luke to check for injuries, then locked back on Tyler. Let go, Tyler snarled. Drop the bottle, Mason said quietly. Tyler tried to yank free. Mason shifted his weight, turning the motion into a controlled twist. Pain flashed across Tyler's face. With a clatter, the broken glass hit the pavement. Hey man, this is assault, the friend with the camera blurted, still filming but less sure of himself now. Assault is swinging glass at someone's face, Mason replied, not looking away from Tyler. What I'm doing is preventing a felony. The second friend took a step back. Ty, let's just go, dude. It's not worth it. Tyler's pride blazed hotter than his fear. You have no idea who you're messing with, he hissed at Mason. You're a line cook in a dive bar. I could buy this place just to fire you. Rusty's barking had shifted to a whine, nose smeared against the inside of the window as he tracked every movement outside. Luke reached back blindly, fingers brushing the fur through the glass, trying to soothe him. In the distance, a siren wailed faintly, some other emergency in some other part of town. Out here, it was just them and the hum of a streetlight. Mason leaned in slightly, voice dropping for Tyler's ears alone. Walk away. Take your buddies and your truck and whatever Daddy pays for and leave. No. You're drunk, you're armed, and you're about 30 seconds from turning this into something you can't buy your way out of. Tyler swallowed. Beneath the arrogance, something calculating flickered. He was used to his last name opening doors, not to a man who didn't flinch when he shoved him. The friend with the phone shifted his grip. The camera's red dot blinked. Seriously, Ty. This dude is not playing. Fine, Tyler spat finally. But this isn't over. Mason released his wrist, pushing it away with a small, controlled motion that said, I'm letting you go, not you getting free. Tyler scooped up his keys from his pocket and turned, but not toward his truck. He sauntered instead toward Luke's car, toward the door where Rusty pawed at the glass. "Leave the dog," Mason warned. Tyler didn't touch Rusty. He leaned in, staring through the window with a smile that made Luke's skin crawl. "You hear that, Mutt? Your owner thinks he's safe now. Cute." Then he straightened and backed away, hands raised in mock surrender. "Relax, cook of the year. We're leaving." They piled into the truck, doors slamming. The engine roared to life. Tires squealed as Tyler gunned it out of the lot, clipping a trash can and sending it spinning. As the taillights disappeared, the parking lot seemed to exhale. Luke let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. His knees felt weak. He leaned against the car, resting his forehead on the cool metal. Rusty licked the window where Luke's head touched, whining. Mason finally turned to him. "You all right?" Luke nodded shakily. "My phone." "Under that truck," Mason said, already moving. He crouched, reached into the puddle and came up with the dripping device. The screen was spiderwebbed with cracks. "Might still work." "Maybe." Luke stared at the ruined phone. That cheap rectangle of glass and plastic had been his lifeline. His work, his bank, his map. He swallowed hard. "I can't afford a new one." "We'll figure something out," Mason said. "We?" Luke echoed. Mason hesitated. The undercover line he was straddling was getting thinner by the minute. He was supposed to observe, report, not get entangled in civilians' lives. But every instinct screamed that Tyler wasn't done, that this wasn't just a drunk rich kid tantrum. There was a rot in this town and he could smell it. Headlights swept across the lot. They both turned. A sheriff's cruiser rolled in, light bar dark but presence heavy. It pulled up, blocking the exit. The driver's door opened and Deputy Cole Saunders stepped out, thumb hooked casually near his holster. Great, Mason thought. Of all people. Well, Saunders drawled, sauntering over. "My night just got interesting." Luke stiffened. Rusty started growling again. "What's going on, Deputy?" Mason asked, voice neutral. Saunders tipped his hat. "Got a call from a very upset citizen. Said some aggressive delivery driver and a psycho cook jumped him, threatened him with a weapon and sicked a dog on him. Imagine my surprise when I hear it was at my favorite bar." His eyes flicked to Mason. "And you, Cole? Didn't know SWAT was doing side gigs on the grill." Luke's head snapped toward Mason. "SWAT?" he repeated, stunned. Mason's stomach dropped. So much for cover. Saunders smiled like a man who'd just been handed a winning lottery ticket. "Yeah, you didn't know? Your chef here's a big city hero. Well, depending on who you ask." He took a step closer, hand resting now on his belt, very near the cuffs. "Here's how this is gonna go. The delivery boy's coming with me for questioning." Luke's breath hitched. "What? I didn't do anything." "And," Saunders added, eyes locking with Mason's, "I've been asked to bring you in too, Cole. Some folks got questions about why a SWAT officer is roughing up local businessmen in parking lots." Mason's jaw tightened. "On whose orders?" Saunders' radio crackled. A voice came through, tinny but clear. "Unit 7, detain Officer Mason Cole and the civilian. Transport both to county." Saunders tilted his head toward the cruiser, a smirk curling his lip. "Those orders." He reached for his cuffs, and Mason realized this wasn't just about a drunk rich kid anymore. The metal of the cuffs bit into Luke's wrists as Saunders snapped them shut with a little too much satisfaction. Rusty went wild in the back seat of the Corolla, barking, jumping against the window until the whole car shook. "Hey!" Luke protested. "He's scared." Saunders jerked him toward the cruiser. "He'll get over it. If he doesn't, animal control will handle it." Mason stepped between them. "He's a service animal for Luke's mother," Mason said smoothly. "You impound that dog without cause and you're opening the county up to one hell of a lawsuit." Saunders' eyes glittered. "Always the hero, huh, Cole? Funny thing about heroes. People love it when they fall." He nodded toward another deputy pulling into the lot. "Jenkins, take the dog to county holding. Label says aggressive." Jenkins hesitated. Rusty was all teeth and panic, but his tail was still wagging every time his eyes found Luke. "He doesn't look aggressive, Sarge. Just scared." "Did I stutter?" Saunders snapped. Luke dug his heels in as Saunders dragged him toward the cruiser. "Deputy, please. He'll shut up if I'm with him. Let him ride with me. He's all my mom's got when I'm working." Saunders leaned in close, his breath hot against Luke's ear. "Maybe you should have thought about your mom before you picked a fight with the man who basically owns this town." Mason's jaw flexed. "Tyler attacked him. I witnessed it." Saunders smiled without warmth. "And yet, when dispatch plays me the call from Tyler's daddy, that's not the story I hear. He opened the back door of the cruiser. Both of you. They rode in silence, Luke staring out the window, watching Jenkins wrestle Rusty into a separate county truck. The dog pawed at the glass, eyes locked on Luke's until the vehicles turned in different directions. It felt like something tearing. At the county building, fluorescent light washed everything a sickly yellow. They were separated immediately, Luke taken to a plain interview room, Mason to another. No cuffs on Mason, Saunders just pointed him to a chair like they were colleagues having a chat. The illusion didn't last. Saunders dropped a thin manila folder on the table between them. You know what this is? Mason didn't look at it. You tell me. Saunders flipped it open. A grainy black and white photo slid out. A hallway, a door blown off its hinges, a dog lying motionless in the foreground. Even after all these years, Mason's throat closed. He knew every inch of that frame by heart. City raid, 3 years ago, Saunders said casually. Wrong intel, wrong apartment. Innocent man dead. Dog dead. Civil suit. Internal affairs investigation. Funny they still sent you out here to play undercover hero after that mess. Mason's fingers curled into fists under the table. What do you want, Saunders? Saunders leaned back, lacing his fingers behind his head. This is simple. Tyler's family doesn't want drama. They want a report that says a drunk kid defended himself from an aggressive dog and an unhinged delivery driver. They want the part where you put your hands on him, rephrased. In other words, a lie. In other words, your ticket back to your cushy little SWAT unit instead of being stuck on a grill forever. Saunders tapped the photo. Or I can make a call and this little blast from the past gets new life. Media. Complaints. Maybe even criminal charges for you. And as for the dog. Mason's stomach turned. Leave Rusty out of this. Can't do that. Saunders' smile thinned. Tyler says the mutt's dangerous. County policy's real clear on aggressive animals, especially when they threaten an upstanding citizen. They don't wait long, Cole. Few hours, some paperwork, and that dog's a memory. Mason felt cold all over. You'd kill a harmless rescue dog to protect a rich kid's ego? Saunders shrugged. I'd protect the people who keep our lights on. You want your dog friend to live? You play along. You sign off that your friend Luke started this, that he lost control of the animal, that you intervened too little, too late. He slid a form across the table, pen on top. Do that and maybe the dog makes it out. Maybe Luke walks with just a warning. Mason stared at the pen. Every instinct screamed to flip the table, to put Saunders on the floor, to drag Luke and Rusty out of here and let the chips fall. But he wasn't alone this time. Luke was broke and scared. Rusty was in a cage somewhere in this building, trusting that his humans would fix it. Through the thin wall, Mason thought he could hear a distant bark, high, questioning. Saunders checked his watch. You've got 10 minutes, Cole. After that, Animal Control starts their paperwork. He stood, leaving Mason alone with the folder, the form, and the ghost of another dog lying in another hallway, waiting for him to make the right move this time. As on the other side of the building, Luke was being slid a nearly identical paper, with Rusty's fate hanging over every line. Luke stared at the form, the words blurring. Assault, disorderly, aggressive animal. It was like being trapped in a nightmare someone else wrote. Across the table, a bland-looking officer from records tapped the page with a chewed pen. All you have to do is initial here and here, sign at the bottom. You acknowledge that your dog acted aggressively, that you raised your voice and stepped toward the complainant. In return, we downgrade this to a warning and release you on your own recognizance. Luke swallowed. And Rusty? The officer glanced toward the mirrored glass. Animal Control will review. If you cooperate, I'm sure they'll take that into account. Review means what? Luke pressed. He's never bitten anyone. He's scared of his own reflection. He got kicked. That's all he did. Sir, I don't make those decisions. Luke's chest hurt. He could almost feel Rusty's warm weight against his legs during late-night TV reruns, the dog snore louder than the sitcom laugh track. He pictured his mom in her recliner, oxygen tubing looped around her ears, Rusty's head in her lap, her hand resting on his fur like an anchor. Without Rusty, the house would be too quiet, too empty, too much like the months after his dad died, when the only sounds were medical machines and bill collectors. The pen felt heavy in his hand. If I don't sign? He asked, voice rough. The officer sighed. Then the DA might file full charges. Your app record will show an arrest. Could get you deactivated. And the dog? He didn't finish. Luke looked up at the mirrored glass. He knew someone was watching. Maybe Saunders. Maybe Mason. Maybe both. "Can I at least see my dog?" he whispered. "He's probably terrified." The officer shifted uncomfortably. "That's not my department." Luke's eyes burned. "Please. Just 2 minutes. I won't touch him. Just let him see me." Silence stretched. The officer glanced at the glass, then back at Luke, something like guilt flickering in his eyes. "Sign first," he said quietly. "Then I'll see what I can do." The pen hovered over the paper. If he signed, he'd be lying. Saying Rusty was dangerous, that Mason had escalated things. He'd be feeding Tyler exactly what he wanted. But if he didn't sign, Rusty might die because of Luke's stubbornness. Because he couldn't swallow his pride. His hand shook. In the neighboring room, Mason stared at his own copy of the story Saunders wanted him to tell. In this version, Luke was belligerent. The dog lunged. Tyler defended himself heroically. Mason arrived late, confused by the situation. It painted Mason as incompetent at best, complicit at worst. He thought of that first raid gone wrong. Of the man in the wheelchair who'd been in the wrong apartment, clutching his chest as the team stormed in. Of the shepherd who'd thrown itself between its owner and a flashbang, taking the full force. He'd followed orders that night. Trusted bad intel. Played the good soldier. And 2 innocents had died. What good was a badge if it meant he kept making the same choice? Mason pushed the paper away. The door opened. Saunders stepped in, reading his expression instantly. "No," he said softly. "That's disappointing." "You kill that dog," Mason said, voice low, "and I will make it my mission to take every last crooked cop and good OL boy in this county down with you." Saunders' smile was small and cold. "You think you still have that kind of pull? You're not in the city now, Cole. You're in my house." He tapped his radio. "Jenkins, this is Saunders. Go ahead and mark that aggressive mutt for termination first thing in the morning." A burst of static. Copy, Sarge." Mason surged to his feet. "You don't have that authority." "Sit down," Saunders snapped, one hand dropping toward his sidearm. Mason froze. Years of training screamed at him. A wrong move, a twitch, and Saunders would have all the justification he needed. "You could have walked out of here with your career intact," Saunders said. "Your friend free. The dog alive. You want to play martyr instead? Fine. Watch how fast this town forgets you." In Luke's room, the officer flinched as the radio crackled in his ear with the same order. "Mark the dog for termination." Even Luke could hear the words through the thin wall. His heart stopped. "No," he breathed. He looked at the paper. At the signature line. At the small, square window in the door. Through that window for just a second he saw Mason being led past in cuffs now, not as a cook but as a perp. Their eyes met. Mason shook his head once, hard. "Don't." The officer shifted the pen closer. "You're running out of time, Luke." His hand trembled. And Rusty's bark suddenly echoed down the hallway, louder than before, closer, wild and furious, like he'd just seen something, or someone, he never wanted near his humans again. Rusty's voice ricocheted through the concrete corridors, sharper with every echo. The sound carried to the small animal holding area where he'd been shoved into a too-small cage, still wearing his harness. His nails scrabbled against the metal floor as he lunged at the bars. The animal control tech, a woman in her 50s named Marlene who'd seen every sad story a county could throw at her, frowned as she flipped through the intake paperwork. "Aggressive, my foot," she muttered. "You're shaking like a leaf, sweetheart." Rusty whined, nose working overtime. Scents layered over each other in the stale air, bleach, fear, stale coffee. But beneath it all, he caught something else. Familiar cologne, expensive leather, the bitter tang of the bar's kitchen grease on Mason's clothes, the cold metal and gun oil smell of Saunders. His ears pricked. He barked again, claws scratching where the latch was. "Easy, baby," Marlene said. She glanced at the note scribbled at the bottom of the form. "Hold for review, possible termination." Her jaw tightened. She'd seen enough reviews to know how they usually ended for dogs that crossed the wrong human. From down the hall, raised voices carried. Rusty went still, head tilted. Tyler's smooth drawl cut through the air, angry now. "I don't care what you have to do," he was saying. "I want that video gone and I want that driver's app flagged. My dad is not happy." Another voice, Saunders. "I've got it handled. We're shaping the narrative. But if Cole keeps pushing." Rusty's whole body vibrated. He recognized both scents from the parking lot, the kick, the bottle. Danger. Marlene's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, seeing a notification from her niece. A social media clip tagged "Rich Jerk Bullies Delivery Driver and Dog." The thumbnail froze on Tyler's face, sneering, bottle raised. Her eyebrows shot up. She hit play. The shaky footage showed most of what had happened in the lot. Tyler's taunts. Rusty barking but clearly cornered. Luke pleading. Mason stepping in. It cut off before the worst of it, but it was enough to tell who'd started the mess. Marlene looked from the video to the paperwork in her hand. Aggressive dog, she said under her breath. My behind. In the hallway, Tyler's voice rose. If that mutt is still breathing tomorrow, I swear. Rusty exploded into barking again, throwing his weight against the cage door. One hinge squealed ominously. Rusty, hush. Marlene hissed, but no one had ever told this dog to be quiet when someone threatened his people. He barreled forward, hitting the latch just as her phone rang, startling her hand. The flimsy catch popped. The door swung open. Oh no no no, Marlene said, lunging, but Rusty was already a brown streak down the corridor, nose leading him like a compass. He shot past the kennel entrance, claws skittering on the slick floor, turned blindly toward the strongest scent of Luke, and slammed nose first into a closed door. Behind it, Luke jerked his head up. Rusty, he shouted. The officer in the room flinched. What the? Rusty pawed at the gap under the door, whining, then froze. Saunders' scent flooded toward him, heavy and sour. Voices were closer now. Get back in there, you stupid dog, someone yelled from down the hall. Rusty backed away just as Saunders and Tyler rounded the corner, mid-argument. Tyler stopped short when he saw the dog loose in the hallway, teeth bared. You've got to be kidding me, he said. Saunders swore. Marlene. Rusty looked between them, the man who'd kicked him, the cop who'd threatened him, and made a choice. Not to run. To follow the smell that meant safety. Mason. He bolted the other way, paws pounding, ears full of shouts and pounding boots. He barreled through a half-open door and skidded into the processing area, where Mason was now being recuffed by Jenkins. Jenkins yelped, stumbling back as 40 pounds of determined mutt planted himself between Mason and everyone else, hackles up, growling with a sound Mason hadn't heard from him before. Rusty. Mason whispered, shocked. The dog glanced back just long enough to lick Mason's hand, then turned to face Saunders charging in, hand already dropping toward his holster. Get that animal under control. Saunders barked. Marlene arrived behind him, out of breath, phone clutched in her hand, Tyler at her heels. I tried, he slipped, she panted. Saunders yanked his gun free, muzzle swinging toward Rusty. Last chance, Cole. Call him off. Mason stepped forward instinctively, dragging Jenkins with him. The barrel tracked his movement now, hovering between man and dog. If you shoot that dog, Mason said quietly, you will regret it every day for the rest of your life. Saunders' finger tightened on the trigger. And from the lobby someone shouted, Sheriff on deck. Right as the outer doors slammed open and a voice Mason knew from briefings roared, what in God's name is going on in my station? Sheriff Dana Morales strode into the processing area like a storm front, gray hair pulled into a no-nonsense bun, rain still dripping from her jacket. 2 state troopers flanked her, their uniforms a darker, more official blue than anything in the county. The room froze. Saunders, gun half raised. Mason, hands half lifted. Rusty, growling in the no-man's land between them. Tyler hovering near the wall, suddenly less sure of himself. Saunders, Morales said, voice deadly calm, why is there a firearm out in my station pointed at an unarmed man and a dog? He's not just some man, Saunders sputtered. He's Cole, SWAT sent him in here to stir up trouble. And that mutt is aggressive, I was about to put it down. Rusty, hearing the tone, barked at him again for good measure. Morales' gaze swept the room, taking in the trembling animal, the smear of blood on Rusty's fur from the bruise, the fear in Luke's eyes peeking through the interview room window, the way Mason was standing, protective, controlled, not threatening. Gun. Holster. Now, she said. Saunders hesitated a fraction too long. One of the trooper's hands hovered near his own weapon. Saunders finally slid the pistol back into place. Sheriff, Tyler cut in smoothly, pasting on his charm, I'm so glad you're here. This delivery driver attacked me and your cook there manhandled me in the parking lot. My father. Morales held up a hand. Mr. Harkins, I've already had 3 messages from your father tonight. I'll address him after I sort out what actually happened. She turned to Marlene. You called my personal line. Why? Marlene swallowed hard, then stepped forward, holding out her phone. Because nothing about this smelled right, Dana. I've got intake forms saying this dog is vicious and needs to be put down, but then I saw this online. She hit play on the video, volume up. Everyone watched the scene unfold on the small screen. Tyler's jeering voice. The first kick. Rusty's yelp. Luke's panicked defense. Mason's level demand that Tyler back off. It was damning. Tyler went pale. That's taken out of context. Shut up, Morales said. She looked at Saunders. Did you see this before you ordered the dog marked for termination? Saunders' jaw clenched. Anonymous internet videos aren't evidence. But they are cause to maybe not execute someone's pet to protect your drinking buddy, Morales shot back. One of the troopers stepped forward. Ma'am, if I may. We're also here on behalf of the Attorney General's office. He nodded at Mason. Officer Cole missed his last 2 check-ins from this assignment. That kicked us a ping. We pulled some digital, he added, holding up a tablet. On the screen was security footage from the bar's exterior camera, Tyler advancing, bottle in hand. Mason intercepting. Later, the parking lot confrontation by Luke's car. The angle wasn't perfect, but combined with the phone video, it painted a clear picture. And then there's this, the trooper went on. An upload from a user named Marlene J. under 61. He smiled faintly at her. Audio from your kennel hallway. You can clearly hear Deputy Saunders and Mr. Harkins discussing, making the video go away, and flagging the driver so he can't work. Saunders blanched. You had no right to record. In a public workplace hallway? Morales cut in. Sit down, Cole. For a second Mason thought she meant him. Then he realized she was staring straight at Saunders. You heard me, Deputy, she said. Cole as in Saunders Cole. Sit down. The room seemed to tilt. Saunders' bravado flickered. Slowly he backed toward a bench, hands visible. One trooper moved behind him, the other turning to Tyler. Mr. Harkins, please place your hands on the wall, the trooper said. You're being detained pending investigation into assault, filing a false report, and attempted animal cruelty. You can't do this, Tyler protested, voice cracking. Do you know who my father is? Morales sighed. Son, your father doesn't outrank the Attorney General or the truth. She nodded toward Mason. Officer Cole, I believe we've kept you from finishing your work. Mason rubbed his wrists where the cuffs had been. My work. The bar, the trooper said. Your intel about possible trafficking through the kitchen checks with some things we've been seeing. We were going to move next week, but tonight seems as good a time as any. Especially if Mr. Harkins has been bragging in hallways. Rusty, sensing the shift, edged backward until he could lean against Mason's leg. Mason dropped a hand to his head, feeling the tremble slowly ease. Sheriff, Luke blurted from the doorway as the officer finally let him step out, paper and signed and forgotten. What about Rusty? Are they still going to? No, Morales said firmly. This dog is going home with his family. After a vet checks those ribs on the county's dime. Luke's knees almost gave out. He dropped beside Rusty, burying his face in the dog's neck. Rusty licked his ear relentlessly, tail thudding against the floor. Saunders lunged to his feet, red-faced. You're throwing me under the bus for some mutt and a delivery driver? After everything I've done for this county? Everything you've done, Morales said quietly, is exactly why you're done. Trooper relieved Deputy Saunders of his badge and weapon. As the metal and leather were unpinned from Saunders' chest and belt, Mason thought of the weight of his own badge back in the city. How heavy it had felt after that raid. How much lighter it suddenly seemed now. Officer Cole, the trooper said, you up for one more stop? We could use someone who knows the layout of that bar. Mason looked at Luke, at Rusty, at the battered phone sticking out of Luke's pocket like a wounded soldier. Yeah, he said. But I'm not going alone. He met Luke's eyes. You feel like finally delivering that order to the right people? Luke managed a shaky smile, wiping at his face. As long as Rusty rides shotgun. Morales nodded toward the door. Then let's go clean up Miller's tap. They stepped out into the night together. SWAT officer, delivery driver, and a brown rescue mutt who'd refused to stay in his cage, and climbed into a convoy heading back to where it all started. None of them knew yet exactly what they'd find in the bar's back room. The squad lights painted Miller's tap in pulses of red and blue. Neighbors peeked through blinds as state troopers and deputies fanned out, some heading for the front, others slipping down the alley toward the back door where Rusty had been kicked just hours earlier. Inside the lead car, Rusty stood with his front paws on the dashboard, nose pressed to the glass. His tail beat a nervous rhythm against the seat. Luke's hand rested on his back, steady. You don't have to come in, Mason told Luke quietly. You've had enough for one night. Luke shook his head. You said this started because of something bigger than Tyler being a jerk. I want to know what we almost got buried for. Mason nodded. He understood that need. They went in through the kitchen. The sizzle and chatter were gone now, replaced by the clink of evidence bags and the low murmur of cops doing their jobs. Gary the owner stood near the walk-in fridge, hands cuffed in front of him, face ashen. "Cole," he said when he saw Mason. "You were spying on me the whole time?" "I was investigating the shipments coming through your back door," Mason replied. "The drugs hidden in the fryer oil boxes. The cash you let change hands in your office." He motioned with his chin toward a trooper kneeling by an open vent, pulling out a vacuum-sealed brick. "You had choices, Gary?" Gary's shoulders sagged. Business was dying. The Harkins boy said it was easy money. "Just look the other way." "And then you looked the other way when he kicked a dog," Mason said. "That was your line right there. You just didn't see it." Rusty tugged at his leash suddenly, nose working. He pulled Luke toward the office, nails clicking on the tile. At the threshold he stopped, tail stiff, and sniffed at the baseboard. "What is it, boy?" Luke asked. Rusty scratched at a section of wall paneling. Mason crouched, curiosity piqued. He ran his fingers along the seam and found a small gap. With a grunt he pried the panel loose. Behind it, packages. Dozens of them. Pills, powder, stacks of rubber-banded cash. Bigger than they'd expected. "Well," the trooper behind them said softly, "I guess we're adding narcotics trafficking to Mr. Harkin's family portfolio." Luke let out a low whistle. "All this and they were coming after my dog?" "Bullies always pick the easiest target," Mason said. He looked at Rusty, who was sitting now, chest puffed out, as if he knew he'd done something important. But sometimes the target bites back. Hours later, the bar was sealed, evidence logged, statements taken. Luke and Rusty sat on the back bumper of an ambulance while a vet tech in scrubs gently probed the bruise along Rusty's side. "No fractures," she pronounced. "Just a nasty contusion. He'll be sore, but he's a tough little guy." Luke exhaled, tension finally leaking out. He buried his face in Rusty's fur again. "You hear that? Tough. That's you." Mason stood nearby with Sheriff Morales and the state trooper. The first hints of dawn were turning the sky a bruised purple. "You did good work, Cole," Morales said. "Even with unconventional detours." "Didn't exactly stick to the plan," Mason admitted. The trooper shook his head. "Plans change. You kept your integrity when it counted. It's more than some can say." Mason thought of the folder on Saunders' desk, the IA report on his old raid. "I've made bad calls before," he said. "Ones that cost lives. Tonight I almost let fear of that happen again push me into another bad decision." "Key word is almost," Morales replied. "You learned. That's what matters." The trooper cleared his throat. "The AG's office is talking about forming a permanent task force out here. Less good ol' boy network, more accountability. They want you on it if you're willing. Maybe even leading it." Mason glanced at Luke and Rusty. At the quiet houses beyond the bar. At the small-town life he'd been pretending to live and somehow started to care about. "I don't know if I want another team kicking indoors for bad intel," he said. "But, cleaning up towns like this? Making sure guys like Saunders don't wear badges? Yeah, I could do that." "And the dog?" Morales asked with a hint of a smile. "He's got a nose." Luke overheard, chuckling weakly. "Hey, he's my mom's nurse and my co-pilot. We're kinda a package deal." Mason walked over, hands in his pockets. "Then maybe we make it official," he said. He pulled something from his jacket, a small, shiny tag with the county seal on it, hastily engraved. Courtesy of Sheriff Morales and some very appreciative troopers. He clipped it to Rusty's harness. The tag read, "Honorary K9, Rusty." Luke blinked away sudden tears. "You're serious?" Mason nodded. Dog stopped a corrupt cop, found a drug stash, and held his ground when it mattered. Sounds like K9 material to me. Rusty tilted his head, the tag chiming softly. Then he launched himself into Mason's chest, tail a blur. Mason laughed, really laughed, and hugged him back. Later, as the sun finally broke over the horizon, Luke drove home in his battered Corolla. A brand new phone sat in the cup holder, paid for by a witness assistance fund the trooper had mentioned. Rusty sprawled in the back seat, snoring, harness tag glinting. Mason followed in his own car, planning to stop by Luke's place, meet his mom, make sure Rusty settled in. He also planned to call the family of the dog from that long-ago raid, to tell them what had happened tonight. Maybe it wouldn't fix the past, but it was a start. At a red light, Luke glanced in the mirror at Rusty, then at Mason's car behind him. Normal people, he thought. Regular folks quietly standing up when something wrong happens. That's all it had taken to bring down men who thought they owned the town. He reached back to scratch Rusty's ear. "We did okay, huh, buddy?" Rusty opened one eye, thumped his tail once and went back to sleep. And somewhere behind all the paperwork and court dates that would come, justice had already started, the kind you feel in your chest when the small, scared dog isn't kicked this time, but lifted up and given a badge. And you, what would you do if you saw someone hurting a defenseless animal or an ordinary worker right in front of you? Would you look away or step in like Mason did?